we've not had anybody that's really in sales yet on our podcast, right? So almost
Straight
everybody's
up
been either
sales.
everybody's been business owners or marketing people, but
Sure.
like, and obviously part of what you do is marketing. Talk about like from a sales perspective, how important it is for you to have good marketing to attach that sales to. So like a lot of the business owners that we work with are the marketing people and the salespeople, right? So how important is the marketing in your element?
It's crucial. I recently created a spreadsheet of all of our manufacturers. We've got about 65 manufacturers that we represent. And I created a spreadsheet. Not only do I have like a column for their rep that I need to talk to, but I made a column for their marketing file. Do I have their marketing file? And most people might be like, well, what does that mean? Well, if I'm going to sell your product, it sure helps me to get the right content out on my platforms if I have already gotten your high quality photos, your logos, your case studies, your PDF files, all the things that I need to do my marketing of your product. My little column on the spreadsheet is, have I asked for that yet? And do I have that yet? Because you got 60 companies. If they all give me their files, I've got content for days, for months, but if not, I've got to go create it. And there are a lot of smaller companies that we work with that don't really have a marketing department. They don't even have their own social media channels. So it's not like they're going to repost my content, but I've got to go out and find photos and create, through Canva and through CapCut, create my own content for them. But it's crucial to have the high quality photos, and it's crucial to have, I could go out. Like there was one company, I told my rep that is my contact for that company, I said, you've got to work on your website. You've got to work on your photos before I can promote you, because they're grainy. They're from like a camera that's hard to see. And he zoomed in, and then snipped it and then posted it on the website. And I'm like, how am I supposed to, I'm not going to put this on there. It makes your product look horrible. So that's just one example of how it's like I'm trying to help them.
Help me,
help you. And by the way, please reshare it or at least like it, But there's some companies out there that are huge that don't want to. And I actually asked them, I said, why did you not reshare my post? And she was like, well, we've got several reps like you across the country and we don't want to show favoritism. And I get it, but it's also like,
are they doing it?
Did I do something wrong? Did I say something wrong? And by posting 3 times a day, you're going to mess up somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I had one company reach out to me and they were like, hey, number 6 in your bullet of 10 things to not do with pumps, number 6 is not right. You need to change this word. And I was like, thank you. And I went in real quick and changed it, because I'm learning as I'm doing it. That's one thing that's one of the reasons why I do it is like, it actually forces me to learn to create this post. I've got to be an expert. Yeah. And I've got to go and learn it.
Well, it sounds like a large part of your success at it is discipline, right? Is having those things laid out and doing, kind of doing the reps, like just getting in there and
doing the
push-ups, making the posts, right? I was listening to a podcast yesterday. The guy said, just one more, right? When you're done working out, just do one more push-up, and it kind of forces you to think about it. And in a case of discipline, and a lot of business owners too, and I don't necessarily know who our viewers are exactly, but I imagine there's a lot of small business owners, myself included. It's a difficult thing to have discipline when it comes to sales, when it comes to following up, when it comes to, going down that list and just checking in with everybody, making sure that you got it. I think the discipline is a huge element to it. So that kind of leads us to the shift, your shift. So I'd be interested in what your shift was from just making phone calls and visiting people to let's branch out into social media and start making posts. Talk about that transition.
It's a good transition. It really it started building during COVID. That's when I have to give a shout out to Gary Gary Vaynerchuk. You guys do marketing. I'm sure a lot of people know about him. But he really has helped me a lot in getting comfortable putting stuff out there. It's that embrace the haters, thought process. But he also said, post 3 times a day. Mm-hmm. It'll change your life. And I'm like, okay, well, all right. Let me just try it. And sure enough, it has. I try to do one before I go into work. I try to do one around lunchtime, and I try to do one, that hits right when people are driving home around 5:00. And if I could do that, I don't do it perfectly, but if I could do that, what actually changed was people get noticed. And I have seen folks in the industry, in other industries, that they might not be the best engineer or the best person, but because they're the one that everybody knows and trust, because they put themselves out there, people actually are drawn to them. I mean, they're actually drawn to them more than the person that is socially awkward, if you will. The person that they don't know how to get in touch with, and they don't know what he sounds like on the phone, and they don't know what he looks like on camera. They're just a little bit more drawn toward call that person first. I have seen that.
Yeah. So 3 times a day,
mm-hmm. across
every platform. Like, what platforms are you using?
I kind of have I was asking some people this weekend, which platform do you do first? Which do you check in the morning first? And other people said Facebook and LinkedIn, and they're not in the business world like I am. Mm-hmm. I check LinkedIn first. Okay. So I post LinkedIn, and that's where I really craft it and do it. But then I roll it to Instagram. Instagram then puts it on Facebook. I then will put it on YouTube as a short, and then TikTok. Once I get it to where I've done all those, then I'll go back and make a shorter version for Threads, and then I'll use a shorter version for X or Twitter. So it's like you gotta.
So it's LinkedIn,
right?
Instagram, Facebook,
correct.
YouTube Shorts,
correct.
TikTok,
right.
Threads,
and then
Twitter,
X. Yeah, X.
So 7 different ones.
And
is it the same piece?
My daughter doesn't want me to get on Snapchat, but I've heard that there are things you could do like with stories on Snapchat.
I don't know how many business
building
building owners are on Snapchat.
But there are younger engineers,
sure,
that are working their way up, and you'd be surprised how many parents of children are on it because they're watching what their kids are doing.
So is it the same piece of content? So if you do one video in the morning that you want to put on LinkedIn that kicks off your day,
right?
Is that same piece then used for all 7?
Correct.
Or are you adjusting it based on the type of audience?
I'm tweaking it a little bit, but mostly it's the same, just for sheer logistics.
Sure.
I can't make.
Yeah. So, but that's what we want to dig into. Is like, is it?
But there are people out there
posts
that tell you, make different things for every platform.
Right.
I understand, but it's for practicality standpoint and for the sake of time, because I think if you really heard how I'm doing it and when I'm doing it, I don't ever want my boss to ever say you're doing this and taken away from your full-time job. This is taken away. So I make a point to try my best to spend the time, like maybe as I'm getting off lunch break or at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, not during what Jeb Blunt calls the golden hours. From 9 to 11, I need to be calling. I don't need to be.
So you're doing the traditional market or sales tactics during the normal parts of the day. I like to working in the
create videos and work on this social media stuff when it's not appropriate to make phone calls or meet with clients.
Okay.
And you're going to get maybe some pushback from people. I'm not the average Joe when it comes. Like I like what I do, and I work all the time.
Mm-hmm. How long of a run did you have of doing 3 times a day before you started to really see action happening and like money coming in because of what you've been producing. The run, lead up, however you want to describe it, you jump in saying, I'm going to do 3 posts a day.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. And then how long does that take until you actually start seeing real, results in terms like, hey, I saw your thing, but hey, I want you to sit down and talk to me about my HVAC is
right.
different.
So what's crazy is I hear about it everywhere I go, from friends to people in the industry that are at other companies that are looking at our company now because I'm doing it, from clients I used to work with 3 jobs ago that, who knows when they have an issue, but it took maybe 2 years from the time when I started doing it to when it actually, salary doubled. I think that's a pretty good way to show results.
Double salary is a giant leap.
Yeah.
That's a giant leap in 2 years. Mm-hmm. Like most people don't double their salary in 2 years.
And what's
especially
crazy,
at the same job.
What's crazy is that there's the networking side of things. So there's people at other jobs in the industry that are reaching out and commenting and things. But then there's also owners and presidents of competitors that are noticing things, and they're like, who is this guy? But then there's also manufacturers that are reaching out and saying, hey, can you add our product in your store? Because we have a storefront where we sell traditional HVAC supplies for the mechanical contractor to come in. Like I had a guy reach out, he had a chemical that he had come up with a partner to clean these coils better than other things, and it's environmentally friendly, and he's sending me samples to test, and wants me to get it in, help him get it into his. And I'm like, that's not my department, but I can hook you up with the right person. So people are noticing from different levels. So you got the little technicians that maybe don't follow anybody or don't have a following, but
are interested enough into what you're saying because they're dealing with it every single day. Right. So like
all the way up the whole pole, and I definitely don't mean little technician,
but low on the
totem pole.
Yeah.
Maybe a person that just started in the industry. That's what I meant. Like a newcomer in the industry that doesn't know the jargon yet, and I'm able to help him by sharing basic content, basic terms. They're following.
What's your strat? How much time do you give in the strategy of it? Like, are you thinking, okay, I want to discuss these 5 topics and why those 5 topics, or how do you navigate the strategy of, because obviously you have a very specific niche,
right?
So how do you look at it and say, okay, if I talk about this, then these guys will basically hear what I'm trying to say?
Well, so I have a Google Doc that is like 250 plus pages now of just as I'm in a webinar or I'm in a meeting and I think of something, I'll add it to it. It's called LinkedIn content prompts, and I use a lot of AI to help with that. If there's a topic that I want to post about, I'll go and I like perplexity.ai. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one. Mm-mm. It's like ChatGPT, but it's actually current and up to date. ChatGPT's, if you don't pay for the version, it's about 3 years old with the content. Perplexity gives you the sites of where it pulls the information from.
Is it free too?
It's free. Yeah.
Perplexity.
You can get an app. Yeah, it's perplexity.ai, and I'm not getting $1 for it. But
Not yet.
But it's huge because it'll give you the sources of where it pulls all this information from. And so I'll take that and put it onto this Google Doc. So there are many times when the creative juices aren't flowing and I need to come up with something to post about. I'll just pull up that Google Doc. And I've had a virtual assistant help me at a certain time. I don't know if you've ever heard of the company called Upwork. It's,
Yeah.
I use Upwork, paid a guy $5 an hour in Pakistan to help me, you know, expand on the content. I gave him a bunch of prompts, like 40 pages of prompts that I came up with, and he helped me expand them. And so now when I'm ready to post, I go and post it. He's a college educated guy, you know, that looking for work. So not relying on myself to do it all. But so you have that ability out there. Like if there's a business owner out there that's like, I have no time to write this stuff, you could pay people, you know, to do it while you're sleeping halfway across the world for $5 an hour, and it tracks all their time. Takes a screenshot every 10 minutes of his time. I know he's working on it. You know, building the client database, expanding on the addresses and the email addresses, and enriching the data, getting all that. I've had some help. I pay it out of my pocket. The company doesn't pay for it. I pay it out of my pocket because it's building my database.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that leads me to a question that I've been watching your stuff, obviously, you know, since I kind of recognized what you were up to. From a nuts and bolts perspective, which is kind of my role in our company, which is kind of like coming up with the what we're talking about. I see you talk a lot about mindset stuff. I see you talk a lot about, you know, procedures, you know, discipline stuff, things like, you know, how to keep motivated, all of those topics. But then I also see you posting about if you have this problem with your HVAC, you should look at this thing, right? So it's industry specific stuff. How do you decide which, you know, kind of what the mix of those things is? And I'm curious about the function of those things that aren't industry specific. I know a lot of what happens is when we talk to people about content creation, you know, their standpoint is a lot of times nobody really cares about what I do. Right? Only the 4 people in the state that can buy what I'm selling are going to listen. But it seems like you mix it up enough that you could have a general audience if you needed.
I'm trying very hard to incorporate, like I just wrote in my goals today actually, that I need to incorporate more of my childhood business stories from the businesses that I did when I was a kid, you know, incorporating those things. I've got a 12-year-old little girl, you know, not only will she benefit from that, but it mixes it up. It's not all, because if I only talk about condenser issues and air handler issues and filter changes that are problems and chillers and boilers and cooling towers, people that aren't into that, you know, the guy that's they'll unfollow, or they'll just block it out and get numb to it. So I really very much try to, and this is only here recently, I've actually tried to incorporate more of it, but well, let me take a little tangent here. It's also, it doesn't have to be when I'm in my outfit with a sport coat on from work. I've made a point to, on Saturday morning after the gym, record a video. I used to not do that. I used to, you know, be insecure about, I got to be perfect and I got to look like it's, you know, right out of a meeting. And I want the client to look at this and say, this is what it looked like in a meeting. But people relate the most and comment the most on that one video on my front porch, you know, in gym clothes. And I think that was a shift for me that has helped a lot, because it's no longer, as other content creators say, just turn the camera around.
Yeah.
Just stop and turn the camera around. It doesn't have to take 4 hours to set up lights and set up a tripod and do all this creative stuff. Just turn the camera around and record. And there are cool tools out there like CapCut that allow you to put good music into it. You know, TikTok has the best green screen feature, and you can add the best latest trending music to it that will catch that person that's just going to scroll if it's about chillers and boilers and cooling towers.
Yeah, and I will tell you, the interesting thing is, as a company that loves to obviously set up lights and tripods and all that stuff, right?
That's your business.
It's what we do. It's one of the things we do.
But we want to take it to the next level.
I mean, right, but
it's important for your business.
But I will tell you that my advice to people, especially if we go through, because we're in sales too, obviously, every day, so we could probably learn from you in the sales perspective, because we're new. I'm new to sales. I mean, say new to it. I'm 15 years into it. I'm new to it, but what I tell people is that you just have to get started. I mean, you just have to get started. You turn the mic around. I mean, turn the camera around. Find a quiet spot. Find a spot where you're gonna be able to think and talk and not be bothered, and not have a bunch of background sound. But just getting started is the hardest thing for most people. And I just talked to another director of an organization the other day. He was talking to us about doing some videos for his organization. The board says, and this happens, the board says they don't see that it's valuable at this time, right?
Of course.
So thanks, but no thanks. I was like, well, listen, one way or another, I want you to turn the camera around and start making content for your organization, because you're going to get left behind if you're the one, at some point in this, every market turns at some point. At some point, I remember in 2008 and 9 telling people that Facebook business pages were a revolution, right? This is something that's going to and nobody, like, whatever, I got too much to do. And of course it took over and then went away, right? And then Instagram took over, and everything changes constantly. But unless you get started, you're just going to get left behind in this thing, and it makes it difficult to compete.
From a company standpoint, and I think you were coaching him to do it on his personal platforms, correct?
I was coaching him to do it for the business, or
Right.
for the organization, because the thing is, like, he's in the nuts and bolts of the organization. He's there every day, right? He's interacting with the people that their organization is helping. And from my standpoint, I could say, look, you could have us come in and tell the story, or you could understand how to tell the story and do it yourself. One way or another, it should be done, right? And that's the biggest thing for me, is it's like, I don't want you to not do it because it's too expensive. I want you to just go do it, right? And get started on it. And so many times people refrain on that personal level, getting out of the gym, giving a thought about working out, whatever it happens to be, those things that happen, because, there's no function in building my personal brand. What I've been doing on LinkedIn for the last 3 or 4 months is just posting everything on my profile, talking about business, talking about mindset, talking about all those things. And I've gotten a lot of attention from it towards the business, from the personal profile building.
People buy from people, not from companies,
right?
And that, getting out of the box of trying to have the perfectly branded company post, I think we have a marketing department that does that. They do a great job. They're awesome, and they might not repost everything that I post. They don't repost a lot of it, actually, and that's okay. I've stopped tagging the company a lot of times in there, because I feel like it is an ad. There's two things, the whole don't make it an advertisement is a major thing that I make sure not to do. It's not an ad. These are not ads at all. They're educational content. And I'm documenting. I'm trying very, 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 very hard to document and not create. It's easy to create content. It's harder to document.
Right.
I could go and create 3 posts a day, easy. It takes a few minutes. You go find a topic, you go get a definition of it. It's easy to create content, but it's harder to actually, in a flavorful way, in a way that's appetizing for people to watch. If you're walking into a meeting about a grow site, and you're going to go help this grower with his HVAC system. He grows plants inside of a building. Document that you're going into the building meeting. You're going to talk about this whole XYZ situation that this grower has. Is a lot more fun for someone to watch and a lot more educational, and it shows what you're doing without telling them what you're doing. You're saying, hey, I work with grow sites. We're able to provide them with the perfect amount of cooling. This is exactly how we do it. You're able to do all that without an advertisement.
Yeah.
You're simply documenting, not creating. that was a game changer for me too. And I don't, if you look at a lot of my content, a lot of it is just created stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean by it's hard to document the right way.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it might be that you don't want to like put the customer on camera, right? Like a lot of times you don't want to show the world who your client is. And they don't want to be on camera, and you don't want to make the meeting awkward because you're putting it on camera. So coming up with content in a way of, hey, this is what we just talked about, or this is what we're about to go talk about, and kind of doing a photo in the car on the way, or I'm in the parking lot about to walk into this meeting. That's what I'm trying to do a lot more of, as opposed to 12 things not to do with chillers. You know what I mean? Like those get very bland, and you could create those all day long nonstop.
But that's also a lot of what happens is that that those lists of things, top 5 things to think about when you're doing whatever, they get to be people kind of gloss over those things because you see so many of them.
They
right?
do now.
Yeah.
They used to be all the you'd see them and save them and reshare them, and but people do them so much now. It's kind of another list. Oh, he just pulled that off AI.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
And that's, I've done my share of them,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm now like vigilant about them and try very hard to just, people much would rather hear what you're doing and how you're documenting it. Like I'm telling myself that to,
convincing yourself
coach
it's the right
myself
way to do it.
That's
right?
the way to do it.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting. When you get so many times to try something,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you're doing 3 pieces of content a day, you're just trying. You're trying those, created content pieces. You're trying the documentation. You're trying industry specific stuff, mindset stuff. I know a lot of the topics that I come up with for our social media is stuff that when I have a situation, I go, I should probably talk about that, right? Mm-hmm. I have one I made last week that I haven't put out yet. It's nobody likes their label, right? So nobody likes the label that other people give them, right? For a long time, I was called a videographer, and I hated being called a videographer. I hated it. So it's so limiting, It's not, doesn't say what I do really, you know. And I saw a guy on a podcast that the host called him an influencer, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not an influencer." It's like, come on, man, obviously you're an influencer. You're on a podcast telling people what to do. I mean,
It's the same with me. I don't want to be called an HVAC manufacturer rep.
Yeah.
That's what I am.
I know.
That's what I do. I'm a commercial manufacturer rep. We represent manufacturers. But it's that whole thing about the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
I do it all the time now. When people say, "What do you do?" I could very easily say, "I sell chillers and boilers and cooling towers. I'm an HVAC manufacturer rep." Or I could say, "I solve building performance issues for big energy users."
Yeah.
And I stop there, and every time they say, "Oh, cool. What is that? Tell me more about that." And well, then I can dive into explaining what does it mean to solve building performance issues for big energy users. It's nobody likes the label that you're given, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's fascinating when you boil it down because for a long time in our industry, we tried to change videographer into something else, right? Mm-hmm. We tried to say filmmaker, we tried to say cinematographer, right? But when somebody's looking for a videographer, what do they type in? They don't type in cinematographer, right? Because they're not really sure what that role is on a film set. Mm-hmm. They're typing in videographer. So we have to kind of own that a little bit. We have to own the label that we're given in some way. So, but that's a topic that came up because I saw that podcast. And I think your Google Doc idea is a really good idea. I have a notebook where it's all scribbled and horribly written.
Well, I first put it into my journal, and then I'll put it into the Google Doc when I'm
that's a really good idea.
From a tactical standpoint, though, I love what you talked about, just getting started. Mm-hmm. From some tactical things, it takes just playing on the platforms to know how to navigate each one of them. And you don't learn it by going to a class. You've got to just sit there and play with it and learn what you can't do and you can do. And that's one reason why I'm trying to play with them all. And I heard a political candidate talk about truth. I think that's a new platform.
Yeah.
I've started posting on that too. That's one I didn't mention earlier, just to try to
Yeah.
He's at
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
Because
Well-
I've already made the content once. But we have tools today that are free. We have, when I was growing up and had my businesses, these didn't exist at all.
Yeah.
And now they're free. But at first, like from a technical example, the iPhone has the ability to take the photos where you can hit the button in the top right hand corner to turn off the live photo. But I've learned that if you use that and take little photos of you walking through a factory or walking through a customer's job or flying on an airplane, if you take little photos like that and when you put them into CapCut or put them into TikTok, it actually looks like a cool movie.
Yeah.
It actually has them moving throughout the.
I guess Threads has been out about a year, right? I see a lot of people are still using Threads after a year. But even TikTok, I mean, TikTok's been prominent for 3 or 4 years. And I want to talk about the B2B thing in a minute, but like the TikTok is a difficult thing to talk to clients about using, right? There's so much attention on TikTok. Obviously,
That's the number one.
yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, what we do is we stay with what's comfortable because it's comfortable functionally, right? And if whether or not Instagram is working for us, we know Instagram well enough that we just stick with that's what our primary platform is, instead of moving where the attention goes or moving where the audience is, really, more than anything, right? And so, we figured out that our audience that we're going for is primarily on LinkedIn. So I've been doubling down on LinkedIn and putting everything there. But secondarily is TikTok, because that's where attention is, right? And all of these platforms. So truth, might be something that happens, might not be something that happens. They come and go like that, right? But it's,
Well, I was given advice.
If Elon Musk brings Vine back or whatever, we'll have to figure out how to start making 6-second videos.
We'll be right there.
Yeah.
I was advised by one of my mentors to focus on one platform at a time. And so I went all in on LinkedIn and said, I'm going to not look at Instagram and Facebook for a while, and I just focused on that, and it got to where I had about 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, and it's like, okay, now I feel like let me start getting out there on other platforms because I've now built up a base.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's my base is
Sure.
LinkedIn, and that's where the business is. I mean, I like that the customers can have a direct contact to me, like a direct message.
Yeah.
They can reach out directly and say, hey, can you help me with this issue? They could reach me out. They could call or email me anyway, but you can find people's contact information through the contact section.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many prospects look you up online before they meet with you.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times I like to do it because I know who they're connected with, that I'm connected with, and I can use that as talking points, just as traditional sales. It's good to know who they're networked with. But they're doing it to us. Should I take this appointment with this guy that just cold called me? Should I take that appointment or not? They're going to look you up. You know, when you leave the appointment, if you haven't already connected with them, I like to connect with them right after the appointment.
Yeah.
So what is your LinkedIn strategy? Like, are you also cold messaging people on LinkedIn? How much of a tool is it outside of posting your daily content?
So anytime anybody views my profile and there's a little spot there that says connect, I hit connect because they came there somehow. So I want to make sure I can grab them while I can. I was given the technical strategy of, don't write a 3-paragraph, where it says add a note, don't do. People don't want to read that. They don't really want to get a note from you. Just connect. Just hit send a note. Send without a note.
Yeah.
And I've started doing that for a while now, and it works. They'll connect or they won't. It's not a big deal. As far as the strategy goes, I don't like the in-mail messages. I don't like to get them because I know that they're just automated and on a machine that once you respond, it'll cut it off. I don't really care for them. I just am using it as my strategy is to just post content and become a thought leader and become known in the industry for what I'm trying to do. That's my strategy, and now they can click on the About Me and see the About section. My contact information is there. There's a link to our website. There's a link to my line card that shows them all the products I'm repping. It's all right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only my resume that explains my story, or is planting seeds for me to explain my story,
Well, and I think LinkedIn's Messenger is probably one of all the platforms is one of the most robust of all the platforms. And I think what you said is really critical, which is nobody expects to get a real message, right?
Yep.
Nobody expects to get like an authentically written message by a person, right? Or if they get a message, it's a sales pitch in the first message, right? Mm-hmm. Here's what we do.
Right.
Call me if you want to buy what I'm selling, right?
And two things that drive me nuts on LinkedIn is, number one, when somebody doesn't have a photo and doesn't have like a banner behind their head,
mm-hmm.
What are you doing? The other thing is when they require somebody to have their email address to connect with them.
Yeah. There's all kinds of,
it's like, why are you on here? If we're here to network, we're here to meet people and grow and expand. There was a coworker that was from an office out of Nashville this past week that I was at a conference with, and I was like, "Hey, man, I tried to connect with you. Why do you have on there that you have to have your email address?"
Right.
And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "You don't even know that it's on there?
You're not really a LinkedIn user.
You don't even know that you have to have an email address for me to connect with you?" And so he was like, "Man, thanks." And he went in there and he fixed it, but. Sometimes I thought people always did it to like block people,
Right. To filter it, right? Well, what are the other things I like about LinkedIn's Messenger is that you can send a video in a message and it'll embed the video directly in the message. Mm-hmm. So like if you send a video in an email, you can embed it to a point, but you still have to go to a third site to view the video. You can view it right inside the message. And of course, if you get a message from me and I say, "Hey, Matt, it's Bill. I just love your content lately. I'd love to connect at some point," and it's a video, there's no way to really like get more attention in a message than that, right?
For sure.
And what started to happen is there's a lot of these LinkedIn courses that are going around now, people teaching you how to get those messages on LinkedIn. And so what I'm seeing these random folks that are emailing me and they're saying, "I love the content you're putting out now. I noticed your, insert video here that you just put last week. Tell me about the thought process in getting that together." Mm-hmm. And of course, if I'm asking your opinion about something you did, then you're super excited to respond to me, right? Absolutely. And I think that can work. What's got to happen is you got to figure out, okay, how many messages back and forth until I pitch you, right? Because that's one of the guys that I follow he calls it pitch slapping, right? Yeah. So you just send a message.
And my answer to that is as long as possible.
Yeah.
You make it go as long as possible without asking.
Yeah.
And that might sound contrary to popular belief.
Oh, listen.
But the moment you ask them, that whole, it's kind of like it just falls off.
Yeah, you're done. So, you're done. As soon as you ask for,
going back.
Well, Alex Hormozy says that you should give until they ask.
That's it.
Right.
And that's my strategy on LinkedIn. And
until somebody says,
it's just give.
Yeah. Until somebody says, "Let me buy the thing that you're selling," you don't pitch it. Right. And I think
it's a totally different mindset than chasing.
Right.
Chasing and pitching and chasing and pitching and chasing.
Right.
Like I want to provide so much content that the guy's like, "Oh, we owe him because he's helped me figure out all this stuff that I didn't even pay him for."
Well, there's a big client right now, not client, prospect, but there's a big prospect that I have been trying to get in touch with for a long time. I won't say who it is, just in case they're listening, because they're on LinkedIn. And I am super excited to do any work we can with them. And so I just messaged him out of the blue, like, "Hey man, I had this idea for you. Can we talk about it?" And so we talked about the idea a little bit. He's open to the idea because I'm not going to charge him. I'm just going to jump in and do the first one. I'm not going to charge him for it. but that kind of conversation doesn't happen if I call the place. It doesn't happen if I show up at the front door. It doesn't happen if I email them.
Right.
Right. But somehow LinkedIn opens up those types of things.
You have direct access to these people.
If I have a genuine conversation, right, and you know, we're not bigwigs, but like I have people that email me all the time.
Oh yeah.
2, 3, 4 times a week I get messages on LinkedIn. I get emails that people are looking for. Somebody wants to do voiceovers for us, or somebody wants to do provide editing from Malaysia or something like
pitches.
that. Yeah, it's all a pitch. The very first message is a pitch. And of course, you know, that's not the way to form a relationship with people. You can't do it that way. And so, so I have a question for you from a you know, we're a kind of B2B service business. You're a B2B product business. The conventional wisdom is that.
And it's very much a service too that we do.
Well, right. But I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but
Right.
we're similar in the fact that we're B2B, right? We're not selling to directly to consumers exactly.
Right. Exactly.
And so the conventional wisdom is that social media is not worth the time, you know, for that kind of stuff. There's a lot more efficient ways of getting your word out because you have big ticket items, because you have a relatively long sales cycle. That social media is not a good place to go. And I think it's interesting that our standpoint is that organic should be first, right? And you should hit organically before you put money towards something.
For sure.
Talk about B2B, doing social media for B2B and what's the value there?
First of all, this is the long game.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in it for the long game here. And you're right. If somebody says it's not worth it, they're probably thinking real short term, you know, from now until for making a sale, you know, it's almost August 1st or the end of the month, you know, yeah, going to post on LinkedIn is not going to get you a sale between now and the end of the month. But when I'm trying to build this whole platform to where the client's been watching me for 4 years and all of a sudden it's time for their chiller that's a $100,000 chiller to be replaced, who are they going to think about? Like that's where I'm at with it. And as far as the paid content, I haven't paid for any content in the last 3-4 years. But the only way that I would do it is to find, you know, go through all of the content that I've created and the ones that really hit. You know, I have one little video. It was a 10-second video of water standing inside of a cooling tower that shouldn't be there because it wasn't maintained correctly. And it's us opening the door of the cooling tower and there's standing water and it's like windy and it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? That video got 235,000 views across the world. You know, that video, as opposed to one that got 700, it would be the one that I would put money toward.
Yeah.
So using this as the ability to say, okay, for 3 times a day, I'm going to just do my best at creating the content in the moment. And then after a month or two, assess it and take the ones that are actually performing like crazy and put money behind those. That would be the strategy for a small business.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's is essentially what we recommend to people to do too. And you know, we've seen tremendous growth with clients when they go from doing either no content or very little content or the wrong content. That sales pitch thing is the same with content, right? So if you,
and I know very quickly if it's the wrong, you can hit delete.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and that's the cool thing about it is people freak out that this is like, okay, once you post, it's there and the world's going to screenshot it and it's there. We can't do anything about it. You've ruined the company or you've ruined your brand. You can hit delete.
Yeah.
You know, I know very quickly if after about 30 minutes or 2 hours, if nobody's liked it and nobody has, it's just not doing anything. Maybe I was too aggressive. Maybe I didn't say it right. You know, maybe it was too much of a pitch, and that's happened. Or maybe maybe I mentioned a brand or something that I shouldn't have, right? And there's been times I've hit delete,
Yeah.
And I learned.
Yeah.
Okay, well that didn't resonate, or maybe I need to take the exact same thing, but just take these hashtags out or change it a little bit,
Right.
So,
well, it's interesting. I mean, it's cool to see that this is working for you, and that's really awesome to see. We run across it with our clients that we get these when we look at the analytics. 1,200% improvement in engagement and all that kind of stuff. And that type of stuff is hard to it's hard to articulate because obviously we're selling it, right? So if I tell you, hey, what we do is really good, and you're going to be like, sure, you think that, right? Because that's what everybody thinks that, right? Everybody thinks that what they do is really good. And we, one of the things that we love to do is to take a client that's either brand new, like they're just launching something, or they just haven't been actively engaging and get him to that starting line, get him to the place where, okay, we're starting to create content. We're seeing it roll,
That's awesome.
We're seeing it move. And that's a lot of fun. And honestly, we love, part of what drew me to this business is setting up all the cool stuff, buying these mics and, which articulating arm am I going to attach to the mic, and all that stuff is really cool. But, the phone makes it so easy to just start, just to get going.
This has created, like, I don't know if you know this or not, but Canva allows you to basically take the old dead PowerPoint and because there's from a sales standpoint, and this is really marketing, but you can actually take that PowerPoint, put it into Canva, and they call it a live presentation. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, we've done it.
Well, the old way of you go to pitch a presentation to a company, and you go in there and you're supposed to meet with 4 people, and all of a sudden it's just the facility guy because the CEO had a call, and the CFO, he had something come up, and the COO had an operations meeting he had to jump into. He couldn't, there's a fire he had to go put out. And it's like, do I stand here and meet with the facilities person who's really not the final decision maker? It's not the final decision maker. Old school sales would say, stop,
right,
go home, regroup, come back.
Yeah, wait when the decision maker's in the room. Yeah.
Okay, well, his CEO can't make it. Well, what I've found is using this tool, because I'm doing videos on social media, it has gotten me a lot more comfortable doing something like this, where I'm actually just giving my pitch to Canva with the same PowerPoint presentation, and I can email him a link.
Yeah.
And it stores it on Canva. But that wouldn't have happened. And I have many coworkers that would never do that because they're not comfortable with the camera.
Yeah.
And it only comes from that practice, like you said, jumping in there and trying to turn the camera around and start recording.
Well, I started just this year, and it's crazy. It's taken me this long. I've started just this year doing our proposals in video. So nice. We'll write the proposal up, and I'll put it on the teleprompter, and I'll just say, hey, thanks for meeting with us. This is what we figured out in looking through your stuff, and this is what we suggest. And I'll send them a video, maybe 10, 12 minutes long, because I'm going through everything in detail.
Sure.
But
I've had some that are an hour.
Yeah, it's just not.
It's the whole presentation, and they watch it.
And look, if you got a webcam on your computer, you can record that stuff really easily and send it out. I mean, you don't have to have a studio to be able to do that. But I think that stuff is so powerful when you can do it well.
Well, when you're talking about selling with social media and marketing, really, with the whole social media piece, you can write the best blog post or the best, it looks like a blog because there's several paragraphs. But if you would simply read that with a green screen, with a cool photo behind you, and I've just started doing this here recently, but it just makes it so much better. So much. They can hear your tone. They can hear your
engaging.
It's a lot more engaging. Yes. Yeah. And it doesn't take, I also have a rule about one take, and I don't do it perfectly. There are some times when you mess up and you just got to redo.
But you don't want to be on the 14th take and be like,
this shouldn't take 2 hours
right.
with 14 retakes and it's perfect now. I didn't say
Yeah.
Getting over the fact that you stuttered or that when I was a kid I had a stuttering problem, and I've gotten help with it. And I've also, this really helps me to slow down my thoughts. It's because my brain goes faster than my mouth, so this whole process of talking slowly and talking clearly and putting it out there, knowing that there might be somebody that disagrees with it or has a better product that they think's better than yours, it's all part of the process.
Well, that's a fair fight, right? I like a fair fight, right? It's not a fair fight if they don't know who you are, right? And so I like that part.
If they don't know you, they can't flow you, as one guy says.
That's right. So I asked you two questions before, and I'm sorry, you answered one of them great. Talk about the B2B. Talk about social media for B2B companies, because I hear this a lot, that it's not, the ROI is not there.
Once a week is not going to do anything. Once a day is probably not going to do anything, do much these days either. And it doesn't have to be every hour. But somewhere to 2 to 3 a day, I think is the right mix. They don't have to be a $4,000 video that's 2 minutes that's been chopped, edited, over edited, right? It doesn't have to be that. It can be a meme with a funny little graphic, or it doesn't. That's what I see is the answer for small businesses. Is that's what I'm doing. Is I'm trying to mix in quotes from customers. I'm trying to mix in cool case studies. I'm trying to mix in a little bit of funny memes for a Saturday night when somebody's looking at it that's not in business mode, but it's in more of a funny mode and casual entertainment mode. Trying to mix in a little bit of cool videos from factories. Trying to mix in actual case studies where you're on the job, on the scene, showing what you're doing. If you mix in many of those different things and not just try to sit there and come up with a pitch, that's the way to do it. That's what's worked for me. It is to try to, and you asked earlier, what's the strategy? Well, the strategy is to not do the same thing that I just posted next. Does that make sense? Like if I just did a funny meme, don't do another funny meme back to back. It's maybe the next one's a video with me sitting outside a client's office in my car. Maybe the next one is a case study where I've got a PDF that they can scroll through, talking about how we help this client. There's a mix of working with the marketing team, but yet you can't rely on the marketing team to do it all. I mean, it takes them hours to create a PDF sometimes, or a graphic that's cool, but I'm not really relying on them to do anything.
Yeah. Well, one of the great things about the Tesla is that the white upholstery refracts the light, so you're not only in a soundproof box.
That's right.
But you're also in a reflected light box.
As crazy as it sounds, at one point I was driving down the road holding the camera, and I had a couple people say, "You probably
that's not a
shouldn't
good
do
idea."
That.
Don't do that.
You need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Even though it was like a straightaway, and there was no cars going.
Don't they know that you don't have to have your hands on the wheel?
Yeah. You just let the Tesla drive. Yeah, it's fine.
It's auto steering. It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay.
But there's something about not having the humiliation of other people in the office looking at you, wondering what you're doing. There's something about being in a car that you could just turn the phone around and people are like, "Oh my gosh, what's he saying? It must be important. He's just taking time before he walks into a meeting to say something."
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. It doesn't have to be highly curated. I think people are almost turned off when every post is overly curated. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. It's interesting, as a company that does highly curated,
people relate to the
content. Well, the thing is, like, I think a lot of times highly curated ends up being sterile, right? It ends up being bland.
It's an advertisement.
Yeah, because you're doing a pitch, right?
It's a pitch. That's right. Yeah.
What you got to figure out is, your goal has got to be, what can I do to connect to people or to help people, to reach people? And not necessarily what can I do to tell people what it is that I want them to buy. And it's a mindset shift, And so at that point, it doesn't really matter what it looks like, right? It's just you're trying to get good information to people who need it. And I think that's a huge element to it. I have 2 more questions.
Sure.
So you good? You feeling strong?
Well, then I have some.
Oh, Brian's got one too. Okay.
The one thing I was going to add is that I work very hard to make sure that somebody found some value when they finish looking at my post. Unless it's a funny meme. That's a little different story.
Well, entertainment is valuable. Yeah, entertainment is valuable.
But maybe they read it, and even if they know it, maybe it's a refresher, but somebody out there got value from it. And that's a different mindset than a lot of people posting out there, that it's like, oh, that was a pitch. Oh,
right.
That was an ad. And people just get turned off.
Well, you go.
People like memes because there's truth in them.
Sometimes, yeah.
They're truth, or they're just funny.
Well, yeah, but they're funny because it's true.
Like our director of marketing, he has one and he does it like every Friday. But there's this meme of these 2 or 3 funny guys dancing, and it's like no service calls on a Friday afternoon. This is what it's like, and it's these people doing a funny little break dance,
Because there's truth in that.
I crack up every time.
Do
yours first, because then we'll end. We end with.
Oh, fun questions.
Questions.
All right,
okay,
cool. So, one of the biggest things that we find that we help people with is the amount of time that this takes, right?
Sure.
I want you to, I think that probably anyone listening to this who has heard you say 3 posts a day on 8 platforms,
right.
If you include truth, they're going, no way I'm doing that. No way I'm doing that.
Start with 1.
What in the world do I have to do with my life,
1.
right?
Right.
So what would you? Obviously you get to that point, right? And one of the sales books, I don't remember which one it was, has said that the thing that keeps a salesman from calling is that they don't have success, right? So the more success you have, the more calls you make. So the more times you get that satisfaction. Talk about the amount of time it takes to get not only to organize the ideas, but like, okay, what am I posting today, and all that stuff. So
one thing I've learned is always find the photo first. Don't work backwards. I learned that when I worked at the forensic engineering company. Find the photo first, because the moment you write a great post or you come up with a great idea and then you try to find the photo, it could be a nightmare. And then you can't find it and you got to start over. So one thing that I'll always do is I normally will find a great photo first and snip it and use and then craft the message from that. The amount of time, 20 minutes to come up with the post. If it's a video and I try to keep the videos under 60 seconds because that's what really works on the platforms. 5 minutes for the video normally. And the way my brain works, though, is I'm all the time thinking about, I was just sharing this with my wife and my daughter on the road. I said, you know how my brain thinks? When I'm in a webinar or I'm in a lunch and learn or I'm in a meeting, if somebody says something or I see a photo or a graphic, like, that's a good post, and I'll snip it and I'll save it. Mm-hmm. It's like that's where, because you're having to come up and tell yourself I have a goal of 3 a day, because you're telling yourself that I've got to make a post at lunch no matter what, you're thinking about, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to post? And things pop in your mind. It's like you're manifesting this post at 10 o'clock when you don't have to post it till 12 o'clock. Things just, and so when I'm sitting in a webinar, I'm taking notes and learning about our products, but I'm also, holy cow, that's a great video. That's a great post, and using the snipping tool and putting it over into the Google Doc that I can then later come back to and elaborate on. So, but there are sometimes, because I've told myself I'm going to post today at 5 o'clock, that I sit down and don't have a clue what I'm going to post.
And you organize around it.
And back into it and say, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's got to be something. And we got to go home, so we got to do something quick. And it could be 3 sentences. Yeah. It can be, a list. It doesn't have to be a perfectly crafted 4 paragraphs.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so the last thing that I had was the first conversation you and I had about this podcast. I think you dropped 3 quotes from books in the conversation. You said so and so says,
I'm
and
a
I
big
love
reader,
that.
yeah.
I love that.
I'm a
I
big
love it
reader.
when people do that. They go, this is what this person says. Talk to me about the value of reading these books. And, Brian and I talk about this all the time because he and I are always reading books. And I like his standpoint, which is that not much use in reading it if you're not going to put it into practice, right? It's just
But at the same time, we can't, every time we read a book, jump in to say, oh, we're doing this, or oh, we're doing that. We have to,
but you can adapt
edit it
into something.
But I get
Pick out what is-
I get so excited every time I read a book. I'm like, oh my God, I
Absolutely.
just read this book and this guy said to do this
We gotta
thing.
change our model.
And this is what we're doing.
That's right.
We're doing this right now,
So
and
this
I do the
question
same thing.
kicks off our fun questions.
I can't wait.
What was the last book you read, and what did you get out of it? Or are you reading a current book right now?
I'm always reading a book. I would say that I would. So Gary Vaynerchuk's Day Trading Attention is the most recent one that I listened to on Audible on the way to Greece and back. That was a killer one. I'm also just reading a book. I just finished it this past weekend. It was by David Bet. I can't remember.
Bet David.
Patrick Bet David.
Yes,
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 yeah.
yes. Patrick Beck David about the 5 pillars or the 5. I'll have to go back and look at it, but it was more about your 5 next moves.
Yes.
Your 5 next moves.
That was a good one.
That was a good one. But I change it up. Like I'm into real estate investing, and so I listen to some real estate books or read some real estate books. It doesn't have to be all, with paper, reading it. I do a lot with Audible.
We substitute reading and listening, so it's all good.
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And on this
It's the same-
podcast, it's interchangeable. I
Yes.
say reading. I've not read a book since college. I listen
I
to
do
books,
love to read
you
a
know,
book and
so-
highlight, but I can do a lot more while I'm, whether it's pulling weeds in my yard or doing laundry, listening to a good book about
What's one thing you got from Day Trading Attention?
Day Trading Attention. So the reason why it was only after that book that Gary told me to post on all the platforms. It's because, by doing that, you're learning how to quickly adapt and utilize that platform. And whether this Truths platform that I heard somebody using, whether that goes away or not, I'm learning things about it that's going to help me. He also said to not invest a bunch of cash into posting. A lot of companies want to post. We shared about it earlier, but a lot of companies want to put money into social media marketing on posts that they don't know if it's going to work or not. They're doing their A/B testing on organic or on live posts that they paid a bunch of money for. So that was one huge thing. And also,
and he says get the organic success first, and then put money towards what's successful.
by posting all the time, you're going to clearly see that 1 or 2 or 10 posts out of 100 that did great. And then that's the post that you turn into your ad or your paid content. Maybe you lead with that video and then you end it with the hook, the jab, 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 right hook. You end it with the hook of, if you want to learn more about this, sign up for our webinar, sign up for our class, or check out my line card. So that was a big thing. And to know that he told one of his viewers that was complaining because their podcast hadn't gotten any traction. They've got like 6 listeners and that they're all his family members,
Mm-hmm.
He said, all right, well, reach back out to me at episode 747,
Right.
with the principle and the theory there of you've done like 30 episodes, so for people that are making content and they haven't gotten any traction anywhere, number one, it probably means you're not doing a good job on creating the content, and maybe spend a little time investing in learning how to create content. But you really, for me, it's that whole, the only way I'm going to know what's working and what's not working is to put it out there and get the feedback. So does that answer the question?
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
bit?
that's
Great.
awesome.
So,
Yeah.
5 favorites.
Oh, the day trading attention piece, it was clearly saying that the attention is shifting. It's our jobs as marketers to find out where it's going and to be there. Whether it's like before they get there, we have to be there. And so that's where I was like, okay, well, like with Truth, I heard a political candidate mention it 3 times.
It's his
videos.
platform.
And it's like, holy cow. And I don't know that. I didn't research it. I just started posting on it,
Yeah.
you know. But the point was like, oh my gosh, people are going to go there.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's that or any other ones. It's like, you know, my market is engineers, mechanical engineers and building owners. There are young building owners and young engineers and young entrepreneurs on those platforms that my coworkers and my competition are not on there yet.
Yeah.
People are not doing what I'm doing yet. And so to try to be the first to the follow that attention is the whole thought of the book.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love
Yeah.
it. Be there first.
We should have been on TikTok 4 years ago.
When he was raving about it.
We were. Now this is for the wedding stuff, we got on spring of 2020 because I had 3 editors that were stuck at home and nothing to do. So I was like, well, go get hard drives from the office and put together some compilations and let's figure out TikTok. And so she barreled into it. We started posting every 2 or 3 a week and got hits. Got hits within, those first 4 or 5 posts. We had one that went to 180,000 views. We had one that went to 1 million, which was exciting.
I think that's at like 4 million.
No. There's one. There's like 6 that are over 4 million. But we had a hard time early on TikTok converting those. Right. Back in the olden days, if you had a hit on Facebook, you could convert that because it's very easy to know who did it and to follow who did it. Who did it is not that important on TikTok, right? It's about the content, right? Yep. And so we had a hard time figuring out how to convert. We have one right now that's almost 8 million views, and it was just a great wedding clip, right? It was just a cool thing that happened at a wedding. Just we happened to capture it well. But that kind of stuff, it's hard to set off that type of thing, on TikTok especially right now, because of how much activity there is. There's so much activity.
So I would say a lot of, especially local small businesses, when they think of TikTok, they think that they have to get out there and do little dances, and that's not what you don't have to do that. Posting about what you're passionate about and being able to put some cool trending music to it is a game changer. And none of my videos are dancing. Right?
I should not be dancing on TikTok.
I'm not dancing.
I'm just going to tell you, nobody wants to see me dancing on TikTok. I don't think that's something that would hit. That would not be popular.
But I've heard people say that, don't just only post about what you do.
Right.
I selling HVAC equipment and helping building owners with their building performance issues. That's one thing about my life that I do, right? But I'm also a father. I'm also a husband. I'm also a master gardener. I'm also,
Oh, we got to get into that at some point.
All these things that I do, those can also be great content that when someone looks at that, they are not just bored. Because at the time they don't have an HVAC issue,
but you're rounded, right? And
it's making you into a person instead of just this person selling HVAC equipment. People start to know my story and know my background, and it's like, oh my gosh, I know him before he walks into the meeting because they've watched a few TikToks or they watched a few videos. They know how I act, they know how I sound, they know that I'm, what I look like, they know where I'm from, all these social things that our body wants to be comfortable with somebody. These platforms allow you to do that.
That's
very quick, very, very quickly. You can watch a video of somebody and know within 10 seconds a lot about that person.
And make that connection too, whether you like them or not, or
very
you
quickly.
want to,
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
No question.
That's great.
This has been a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you coming in. We end off all of our As Told by You episodes with 5 favorites. So rapid questions. What is your favorite season?
I love the spring.
What is your favorite dessert?
I would say apple cobbler.
Oh. What is your favorite fictional character?
Oh man, Superman.
What was your favorite job?
A favorite job that I've had.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing now is my favorite job. I love what I do.
And finally, what is your favorite sitcom?
Sitcom. Like a series, like
Yeah.
My wife and I binged on what's Suits.
Suits. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
we love Suits. So we're over it now. It's
I'm
done.
I'm into I'm into season 6, I think, of Suits, and I'm over it. I don't
Yep.
want to watch it
Right.
anymore.
It
I
got
feel
you
like
excited.
the
Oh
new
my
one's
gosh.
coming out.
I know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm obligated now.
Yeah.
You know, like
Right.
I'm kind
Well, I
of.
know that you get to that point. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you have to finish.
I
it.
got to see what happens.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't wanna.
That was a good one though that we're looking forward to watching
Yeah.
together for a while. Yeah.
Matt, where can people find you and follow you on social?
On LinkedIn, I'm Matt Warren, and if you go to Instagram or Facebook, it's Matthew T Warren 3, the number 3.
Yeah,
Love to connect.
Thank you so much for
Awesome.
joining us tonight.
appreciate it.
Yes.
That's great.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.